1945, at the end of the Second World War, when Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret went out into the crowds to watch their parents, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, come out onto the balcony and do that waving thing that happens on the front of Buckingham Palace. And the true story is that they went out there, and in fact the Queen wrote in her diary that they stayed out until I think about 4 in the morning. But our story is rather like a kind of Roman holiday type of story. It's slightly embroidered, and it's a story about these two I started my career playing Titania, Queen of the Fairies, in A Midsummer Night's Dream at school, and I followed that up by playing Mary Stuart in Schiller's Mary Stuart, and but then I moved on to Kings, and I played Charles I of England, Charles II of England, George IV of England, and now George VI, and of course Prince Charming in Shrek.
Why do you think that is? Why do people come to you and ask you, Rupert playing...
Love and obsession, really, actually, to be quite honest, with my film about Oscar Wilde.
So tell us about it.
It's taken me quite a few years to get it together, and the strange thing about it is that a lot of the support I've had for making it has come from here in Bavaria, so it just shows how strange life is. When you come up with a film, you probably all know this, but you have to find, particularly in the European kind of modus operandi, you have to find backers from every country, and little by little you build up little pockets of money that go into a big pot, and hopefully by the end you find your budget. And getting the first one is always, can be the hardest. And the first support I really got in terms of funding was from the guy who is doing this film tonight, Marcus Zimmer and Concord Films, and a little after that I managed to get a deal with the sales company Beta, yes. And then a little after that I managed to get a substantial piece of funding from the state of Bavaria, which has been really fantastic for me because it's given me a kind of foundation of finance with which to attack the rest of the world.
Yes, I think we have to underline the fact that you actually plan to direct this.
Any subtitle or effort, it just is how it goes, and I think it is about one of the great punctuation points in European history between the 19th century and the 20th century. So I have a feeling that it's a really good the elusive European film is what I'm hoping it's going to be.
If your finished film carries over just half of the passion we are feeling now, it will be a great film.
Let's hope. That I've achieved enough to get it. I mean, I'm very thrilled and excited, but I feel that really I'll deserve it next year or the year after.
We obviously think that you deserve it right now, and you will get it tonight. And we chose a few films that you did over the course of the years also to play here at the Munich Film Festival. Right. One is the very first film which put you on the map, so to speak, which is Another Country, made in 1984.
Yeah, 30 years old last year.
That's right. I remember as it was yesterday when I saw it in Cannes, so right. It cannot be that long ago. But if you think back on that film, it was part of what then has become the new British cinema, right?
Yes.
There was Another Country. You did Dance with a Stranger a year later, I think, Mike Newell's film with Miranda Richardson.
That's right.
So if you think back to that time in British film history, what did it mean suddenly to have something that could be called new British cinema and your part in it?
Well, it just all viewed from today, it feels like another planet, really. You know, because filmmaking has moved along so much and has become such an expensive thing. You know, that film, the first thing we had a screening of it's screening on Friday, and it actually, even though it's a beautifully made film, it was made for £1 million, and its attention to detail in the design, in the cinematography, in the costume, in everything, considering it was made ready for what is now, because there was no monitor. Nowadays, if you go on a film set, you see there's a black tent next to the action, and everybody is inside this black tent looking at tiny little screens of the action, and it makes a kind of detachment between what's happening on a film set and what's happening with the director. Whereas in the old days, or when Another Country was made, you'd walk on a film set and you'd see an actor surrounded by tons and tons of little lights, because there were so many different things you had in those days, and everybody around was like people on a wildlife safari, like watching, because that's the only thing you had, watching the actual thing happening. And you know, there was no grading to do after a film. What you shot was what you got, and so there was what I remembered when I watched the film was this almost sacred kind of thing about filmmaking, which is slightly gone for me these days.
Another film is
Great Work of Love from Paul Schrader is a very twisted character, and it really relates to him a lot. The kind of the torture in it, and the weird sexual masochistic and masochism and the sadism in it.
How was it?
Of garlic, so that he wanted everyone to recoil from him in the film. At first, no one understood him, but eventually he revealed it was his way of getting the right reaction in the scene.
Yes, and of course you acted in two adaptations of Oscar. You said that you feel that you're not ready yet for the CineMerit Award. What made you
feel ready? What am I ready for?
No, what made you feel ready to write an autobiography?
The thing is, actors are very easy people to manipulate. We're so insecure. If someone says to you, "Oh, you should really do this," you go, "Oh, okay," and off you go and do it. And I told her a few stories of things. She said she encouraged me to write them down, and I did. And then she edited them for me, and then I took them to a publisher, and I got a deal. So that's really how it happened. It's been it really changed my life starting to write, because it happened just as a whole period in my acting career kind of closed down, so it filled the gap, and it also just gave me a whole new way of looking at life, in a way, funnily enough.
At this point I would like to open the discussion, so if...
Nice as those red pillars and make some blue. The challenge for me will be, I'll go to that set and then I'll have to come back and act as well, and so I might be in such a queenie hissy fit that I will just explode on the set. That's by my own story, because I realised that if you're not obsessed by it, then something goes wrong always, so you just have to keep going. So I've just become rather boring on that subject, really, but I'm not sure who I'd like to play, really, to be honest.
Or young people, for younger generation.
I don't know what the message for the younger generation is, because I'm always a little bit... everyone seems to want to have a message or a tag, hashtag so-and-so. I think the message I got from it, but I'm not obviously part of the younger generation, is that it was amazing to me to watch the crowd sequences and to see her, and the crowds in our film were brilliant, actually, because normally when you have crowds, they don't bother to act very hard, but these ones acted amazingly, I thought. And there was one sequence, which you'll see if you watch the film, where Queen Elizabeth is on the other side of the gates of Buckingham Palace. So in other words, she's kind of gone to the other side of the mirror, and she's suddenly among this huge crowd, and Big Ben, the tower, costume, because some of them are very, you know, if you Elizabethan costume, so I think costume does, it's fascinating, costume and history of how people saw women and how people saw men. Yes, it definitely plays a part in how you feel, up to a point, I think. Yes.
Do you know if